I like what they're doing. They're picking up the Hoodwink. And now that the meta really has shifted, I hope that Latam, I know that they've been scrimming a ton, but they need to keep up with this meta. The Hoodwink, the AA. Yesterday, it was the battle of the Faceless Voids and the Vipers. Really, every team is sort of scrambling and picking apart every aspect of Dota to really pull ahead in pretty much really just every avenue.
Hmm. And you mentioned lots of defenders maybe feeling like their backs are against the wall here. It is worth noting, for those of you who don't know, this team did undergo some changes to its roster in recent times. Black Soul and Arates were both officially added to their lineup. They added a new coach as well in the form of Raykill. So there's a lot of unknowns for this team, a lot of moving parts right now. Obviously, you would assume, as ET sort of said, that they've been scrimming, practicing, sort of getting that chemistry down, but you still come into this matchup as, well, honestly speaking, let's not beat around the bush here, a bit of an underdog. Hokori, very much the squad that I think most people would expect to take this matchup. So if you're Latam defenders, the odds are going to be against you. You have to sort of respond to that with really perfect execution and some airtight drafts here. Lion and Tiny to start them off is not too bad. Black Soul in particular really favors that Tiny in the middle lane, so we do always have the potential for that pause 2 hero, despite the fact that in recent times the mid Tiny has sort of seemed to be kind of hit or miss.
Yeah, and it is something that you know you're going to be able to get active. It's one of those definites where before 15 minutes, your Tiny is going to have a Blink Dagger. He's going to be able to make rotations. It's one of those guarantees. Usually, the guaranteed heroes that we see are like Puck, Mars, where you're always able to hit your timings consistently. And consistency is really what Latam needs here. They need to get their old standbys. I love the Centaur pick. I love that they're just trying to get something solid going for them. At the same time, though, Hokori picked the best carry in the game, bar none. TB has proven itself to win pretty much every single matchup, able to play versus all of these counter picks. It really feels like there's no hero to stand up to him, and especially the Hoodwinked as well. It's just these are the best heroes of the patch right now, and Hikori are just able to pull them out. So Latam, again, they're going to have to play very clean, very fast, very concise. And right now, what they have, they've got incredible magic burst. If they're going to be able to land their spells on their targets, they're going to kill them. But again, if they ever miss, if they ever mess up, the Chain Stun isn't there. I think that's where Hikori, they're going to look for these heroes like Treant Protector, just honestly perfect draft so far, where they mess you up just that little bit. Even I love the counter pick. They're stealing the Ember Spirit away from Analog. They need to sort of get these heroes that are going to mess up that jump, and then a lot of them defenders, they're trapped.
Yeah, you mentioned yesterday Analog played that Ember Spirit in every single game. All three of their matches in that upper bracket series. Obviously, since they're here, that means they weren't quite able to win that series, but Analog played that Ember Spirit incredibly well. So if you're Latam defenders, I mean, it sounds pretty simple because it is. Don't let him have it, force him to play something else, although that Bristleback now picked up by Hokori may not have been exactly what Latam defenders had in mind when they were trying to force him onto a different hero. Between the TB and the Bristle, they are going to have a hard time sort of getting through some of these carries, or cores, excuse me.
And that was something we saw yesterday with the Faceless Void pickups was he was running out of damage. I think in both games, even though you had that AA, you were running out of damage to kill the heroes in your chronospheres. And then you have to make this awful decision where, do I need to pop my BKB in my own chrono? Am I going to have to spend this duration killing these heroes? And if you ever sort of mess up, it is going to be Hikori completely walking over you. And again, this Bristleback, a hero that we've seen pulled out more and more, it's one of those standbys. It's very similar to almost the old Medusa where you'd get Manta Ags and suddenly the game is 5 times harder. And now you're going to be able to put it mid. That's going to be Analog's hero most likely. And now if you don't end up, yeah, they're banning pretty much all of Vitaly's heroes because they know this is just going to be an Analog Bristleback. Saw Bristleback RoboZ solo killed Analog yesterday on that Ember Spirit. It's a lane where you're going to need to be a little bit scared if you're Black Soul. If you fall behind, if you aren't able to get that vessel, which I can only assume he's going to have to get. Lion doesn't really build a vessel naturally. It's going to feel a little bit strange. And now, really just finishing and filling out their job with the Slardar, that makes their Roche potential so much better. Plays into the physical damage that they already have on pretty much everyone. It plays incredibly well with Hoodwinked as well, just because that Acorn shot is also physical. Hokori have a really strong draft to start off the series.
And I especially love that Slardar pick for Vitaly. We saw him in yesterday's series, and even ET for you and I back at the Pro Series 6 that Hokori took part in. Vitaly, he does not really like to be that sort of passive hero. He's not exactly a sort of greedy, farm-oriented 3. He likes to be in the action, initiating into those fights. They always play, or seem to play better, when he's put on that more active hero. The Slaughter plays perfectly into the lineup that they've got here, and it seems like Hokori have drafted themselves into a strong spot. Latam defenders, though, do come in with the Troll Warlord at the end there to sort of close down that carry slot.
And not only is that a classic Kukahook hero, you see him play it so much, it is the auto win your lane versus Slardar pick. Besides Naga, which I also honestly would have liked, it's still, again, not the best versus TB, but it is a hero that you're going to have those whirling axes, you're going to make that guaranteed miss happen, or more or less guaranteed, and that will give Vitaly a little bit of a harder time. And that's where, again, I think Latam are doubling down on the fact that they need to win their side lanes. They need to have good rotations. If we end up in a situation where Lumiere is able to farm just a little bit too much, we've seen this TB, even versus Troll, even in these games where maybe you're 50-50, versus Lumiere TB, you're not going to be 50-50. You're always going to be trailing at least maybe an item and a half behind him. And if he gets just maybe one or two more Aegises than you are, Latam are going to find really a lot of struggles. And now moving that Tiny over to the 4 position, you really have no room for error. If you fall behind, you are going to just really be on the back foot for so long. You're going to have to farm a way more than you should have, and it's not going to feel great.
Yeah, and I especially like the point you made for Lumiere. Hokori are always so comfortable putting him on these sort of hyper carry options, these intensely farm oriented heroes, because they know, like 9 times out of 10, maybe even sort of more than that, they are going to get what they want out of Lumiere and whatever his hero pick is. So in terms of slowing that down and trying to apply pressure, that's going to be, well, difficult is maybe putting it a little bit lightly for the Latam defender side, but they're going to have to try. Otherwise, as you said, that's really not a 50-50 matchup between those two carries. Ooh.
And you do have the Lion versus TB, so you are able to very easily take out his illusions that will be sort of going to those side lanes to push them out. And that's where, again, Latam, they need to sort of pile up, get their levels, get out of the lanes, and then sync up as sort of this 5-man unit that is just going to start walking around. I don't think that Kukahook can really reliably sort of sit back, farm, do whatever he wants, because he's always going to be playing with this sort of looming thought of, when is Bristle going to get his Ags? When am I going to start getting countered? And if I give 1 or 2 Aegises over to the side of Hokori, I really think that is going to be it, because they don't have great heroes for getting you off of their buildings. And now playing versus the Treant Protector as well, you have to be so concise with your pushes. If you start a push and you don't finish it, it's just that instant reset where, okay, we were off the map for maybe a minute, we ran out of gas in the tank, we weren't able to keep the aggression up. So now this is another 5 minutes we're going to have to spend getting this tower. And again, every minute is going to count for Lumiere. Once that Scotty comes out, this game gets so much harder for them to just play Dota on the Latam side.
Yeah, that Scotty in particular, as you said, just going to maybe not entirely wipe out the mobility, but it's going to pretty significantly reduce it. And you know, if the Latam defenders' heroes can't really maneuver their way around the fights, if they can't get in onto the TB in the first place, then a lot of the theoretical lockdown and damage that they have with this draft is almost useless. If you can't actually bring that damage to bear against the TB, then you're not going to be able to shut him down, and Lumiere's just going to sort of fire away, as we do see just about everybody now reconnecting. There was a trio of DCs on that Latam defender's side, but it does appear that they're back in, and we should be getting ready to go here in hopefully just a little bit now that everybody's actually reconnected.
Yeah, looks like we're going to be ready. And again, that is where, if Latam can hit their targets, if they're able to kill this TB, if they're able to kill Analog maybe once or twice before he hits, honestly, it feels like before level 11 or level 12, just because of how fast you accelerate. And Hokori, they still do need to play a very measured game. They need to get their stacks. They need to be able to sort of leverage their heroes. And something, again, they're very practiced at, especially with a player like Lumiere. We saw the Medusa ban out first phase for a very good reason. They were running Medusa Mars in pretty much every series the teams were allowing them to do, just because they love their stacks. They love playing that farming game. Gardeck's going to be able to double stack in the jungle, having that Nature's Grasp. It's a little bit harder than maybe some of your other fives, but again, it's just strategically going to feel pretty good for them. I think both sides know about the word here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Some incredible timing there, as Gartic's actually going to try to deny his. Moonlight, though, trying to play a little bit aggressively, and he should be able to get the D ward down there, so bit of a win for Moonlight and Latam defenders here early on. It's not going to be massive, but Gartic's certainly not going to be happy with that, and now if you're the Treant, you need to be aware. They've got this vision in... Never mind. They had the vision in the jungle. Moonlight's now actually going to deny it just to make sure the tree can't come back later for a little bit of extra gold.
Yeah, and he's actually going to kill it. Sometimes what you see is you just hit it 3 times, so that way it's one way away from a deny. So that way if you do see a hero walking over to get the last hit, you are already in a position to get that deny, but he's just saying not even give you the gold. If you want to buy a sentry and place it there as opposed to maybe blocking or unblocking that small camp, go ahead. And I wonder if Moonlight actually has... Oh yeah, he's just going to get Tango sent out to himself. But everything is going to work. Gartic, as long as he can protect this small camp, I can't imagine Lumiere is going to be too sad. And again, with TB, you just pop the meta, get a few waves. You're always able to get something out of your lane and then make that easy rotation into the jungle whenever. Really, at earliest, you could do it at pretty much level 4. At latest, you could be waiting till maybe 5, 6 just for that max reflection, or sorry, max conjure image.
Just not really a lane where I feel Valky and Moonlight are going to be able to do too much here, unless somebody gets out of position. Maybe they can bully up the Treant Protector a little bit here if they get off that sort of Avalanche Toss combo, but direct pressure onto Lumiere feels like it's going to be kind of hard to come by unless Lumiere himself makes the mistake. So, it very much just be sort of a passive lane for the TB, farm up here, and just look to get off to as strong a start as possible, but the lane where I think we're going to see the most action, as you were sort of alluding to earlier, is going to be mid Black Soul versus Analog. I mentioned that the Ember might want to, well, not might want to, desperately sort of needs to try and put some pressure onto this Bristleback. Really can't allow Analog to just have his way in this lane.
And that's where, at the same time, you have to be a little bit cautious if you're Black Soul. If you do fall a little bit too far behind, maybe he hits that level 4 a little bit earlier than you do, maybe gets an early point up in the goo. You don't have the best starting armor, even though you are an Agi here, and those quills, they definitely stack up. I'm glad we see the magic stick built on Black Soul. Unfortunately, it doesn't really matter. Unfortunately, Ember Spirit versus Bristleback's one of those situations where no matter which build you go for, it feels like you're forced to go that farming build, and you want to max Slight. In most situations, you want to max Slight, but it just doesn't do anything versus the Bristleback. You're never really going to have enough damage to pressure him, and that's where I can only imagine we're going to see the Flame Guard max, and then see him sort of try and match the pace. But Analog, again, he can do Ancients. That's something that Ember Spirit can never really inherently do, and that's where you do start to pull ahead on the Bristle.
Yeah, there's just not a whole lot that you can do inherently to try and slow this down. Might need to see some sort of rotation from those supports. Latam defenders on that front at least do appear to have the means to really sort of pull that kind of maneuver off. Tiny and Lion both going to be able to sort of theoretically make their way over to help out that Ember Spirit if they do see an opportunity. For right now though, all of 2.5 minutes in, we're not really going to be seeing all that much movement. The supports as of this moment just trying to sort of set themselves up in these lanes. As taking a look down bot, Kukohook, how's he doing here?
On top.
Top lane. Yeah, Gartic in some trouble. Oh god, in a lot of trouble. He's much further under that tower than I think he had any right to be. That was a little bit funky. The toss, though, gets him out of position, and oh, that's the sort of mistake that this duo was waiting for. I mentioned Lumiere probably wasn't going to get caught out, but the tree is tanky, but not quite that tanky. Tossed underneath the tower, and lots of defenders able to bring him down for first blood.
And Moonlight was also able to walk the small camp and sort of stop half the pull there. They're playing really well in this top lane. But yeah, that was just the toss back. Gartic was trying to contest a ranged creep. Very simply, Moonlight just avalanched him, and then he was just a little bit too caught up. We're not seeing the boots on the Treant Protector, something that typically we do see. But assuming that he's just going to be sort of in the fight, clobbering around, he has this oov, and 100% got punished for it, just being a little bit too behind the 8 ball there.
That is a little bit of a strange scenario. Obviously, as you mentioned, the Orb of Venom pickup for Gartic, he's trying to sort of be as annoying as possible, but against this duo in particular, it seems like that aggression is so sort of easy for Latam defenders to potentially turn around. Anytime that Treant Protector tries to push forward and make use of that orb, he's immediately putting himself in danger. If Moonlight catches him out like we just saw, then things go poorly fairly quickly, as Moonlight actually able to snag a water rune out from the Bristle as well, tosses him up in the air, or he steals that rune away.
And that's something that Moonlight can do incredibly consistently. If he's able to keep mana out of the Bristleback's hands, that's where he is going to slow down. You are literally just going to run out of plays where you aren't going to be able to farm nearly as fast as some of these other heroes. And see, Black Soul, he's just going for the slight build. It's much better when you do decide to make those side lane rotations. But again, the Bristle hurts and he doesn't care. So if they can slow him down, if they can keep sort of these runes out of the bottle, then Black Soul's going to be happy. And again, he's a spirit. If you're able to get those power runes 6 minute going on forward, you're going to be able to make those rotations just a little bit sooner, maybe before your phase boots, your Orb of Corrosion. And that's where El Misho on the Hoodwink does need to be careful. Same with Gardic. The 4-5 on Hokori are very, very fragile and very, very susceptible to these ganks where you are just going to go down for your cores in situations like that. And that, again, is where Latam need to kind of strike.
Rotation towards the middle lane. Moonlight wants in. Avalanche starts it off. Toss gets him back into the tower. Analog, he's not going down just yet. Good bushwhack in from El Misho, buying some time. Can Analog get himself away? He can, and El Misho, that wasn't just a defensive play. He came close to actually finding some kills there on the back end, but most important aspect there is that Analog stays alive. The Bristle is able to fall back successfully, and while it was a good rotation in from Moonlight, it was just slightly better defensive play out from that Hoodwink.
And that was just the level 6 tick up where Analog just hit it a few ticks sooner than that Ember Spirit. And it was such a cool play from Moonlight actually there. He tried to toss him underneath the tower, which of course, you know, he's going to take more damage, but then tried to walk out of the XP range. So the Ember Spirit had those remnants, but as soon as that Hoodwink showed up, he needed to be there just in case, just to go for the body blocks. And it's a really close play, but the play that you need to make. And if you have to send this, oh, this is unfortunate. You just find a regen rune on the Bristleback. Well, he's just back in the game. He's just gonna do what he wants now.
Well, that's the RNG at work there. As Analog, as you said, just right back into it. He's got a regen rune and a 4-stack on the Ancients there, and another stack over in the sort of further camp to the south. So he's just going to be swimming in gold by the time this is done. Although, there we go. May want to actually pop that regen rune as he was dropping a little bit low, but Analog's just going to sit here and farm up, and there is really nothing lots of defenders can do. Although, as I say that, Moonlight, he's making his way over here, but how much can he really disrupt this? They have vision on it now thanks to the ward, but Moonlight very wisely deciding it's not worth risking his life for.
And honestly, that's all you need to do. I think you sapped XP for most of those large creeps dying.
Dolly.
And yeah, cool.
Next up, there's going to be the Earth Spike coming out as well. Black Soul, does he have any points up in the Searing Chains?
Nice.
No, he does not, but they're still going for it. Stampede gets them right into the middle of the fight, and Rades will be able to get the kill. Vitaly gets taken down, and now they want to try and contest that Ancient stack. Most of it's already gone, but any gold that they can take out of the Bristleback's hands here is going to be a pretty big step for them. So they're able to push him away from that stack, but I don't think there's going to be any sort of secondary fight here. Everybody just appears to sort of go in their separate ways now.
And really, they had full vision of that on the Hokori side. Vitaly knew what he was getting into, so sort of the sacrificial play there. You give the lane over to the troll for just a little bit. And it's a little bit of an unfortunate situation for Vitaly specifically, just because while he does have this wave pushing into him now, this is a lane where as soon as you fall behind, you can never really come back to unless you get sort of that extra rotation, because now the troll, he's level 6, he's going to be able to sort of knee-jerk skill up that ultimate if he wants to. He's actually just going for the 2-2 build, or 2-2-2 build right now. And Vitaly, he's going to struggle a little bit more. But again, the focus isn't him. It's going to be this Axe timing coming in from the Bristleback. If he can get it in time, if Latam isn't careful, if they take a fight maybe where the Stampede's cooling down, they go a little bit too early, they're going to 100% get punished for it. And again, any time that they lose a team fight in this pre-20-minute phase is going to be more time for Lumiere, who's just very quietly sitting in the jungle.
Yeah, the TV has been really not making a whole lot of noise so far. He's just farming away, going to work on, I believe the Yasha already finished off. He's looking for the S and the Y as that sort of first major item. Meanwhile, in that south side jungle, Rades, yeah, there's no way out of that one. Vitaly and Analog pushing their way in. They get the bushwhack from El Misho as well for the lockdown, and the Lion had teammates nearby, but nobody was really in an immediate position to push in and help, so if you're Latam defenders, cut your losses. You sacrifice the support there. It's the first death of the game for their entire side, so realistically speaking, I think they're going to be okay with that, especially as they continue putting pressure on that tier 1 tower mid. Now they want the kill, though. Moonlight in with the Avalanche toss play. Good, excuse me, not Stomp, but Stampede in from Valky to sort of set that one up. And This is going to free them up even further to take this tower. El Misho's here trying. Analog is TPing in as well, though, so... Well, no, they're still going to be able to get the tower. Good attempt from Analog, but there's too much lockdown for him to really shove those opponents off of his tier 1, and now... Latam defender's just backing away. Valky TP's out. El Misho didn't have a bushwhack. He does have it now, though, onto a Radius. So Analog, he's going to go in for the kill. This feels a little bit greedy. He's getting stunned up. There's going to be the Avalanche as well. The toss is coming in. They're draining away that mana. And Analog, you have gone, unfortunately, way too far here. He's going to be punished pretty heavily as Black Soul even gets the kill on that play as well.
And really, Latam is playing incredibly well. They're utilizing this Centaur to really the maximum of its capability. You just simply rotate to the mid lane, find the immediate picket on really the best defender for this, that being the Treant Protector. And then Analog really just sort of uncharacteristically feeding there after the fact. I really didn't think that they had enough damage to take him out, but he was just stuck getting stunned facing the tower. If he just simply turns around there, they surely don't have enough damage to kill him. And it's those small kills where maybe Lumiere's going to feel a little bit more threatened coming down the line. And really, they're using this Centaur like sort of a siege it's almost like a Timbersaw and a Mars when they're able to play like this, where you have that Stampede that you're able to get on top of these heroes pre-Blink Dagger, but you're also able to force down those early T1s. And if Latam can keep up the aggression like this, they're honestly setting themselves up for a pretty nice sort of early mid game. But again, they have to keep the pressure up. If they fall behind a little bit too far, they give a little bit too much space to these Hokori hero timings, then it is going to feel impossible for them to team fight.
Yeah, they're playing well so far, all of 10 or 11 minutes in, but as we've repeatedly sort of mentioned here, the TV continues to farm. You've got that Bristleback working his way towards the Aghanim Scepter, so as you said, they have to sort of keep their foot on the gas here. Can't afford to really back down right now as they do jump in onto Vitali. Bushwhack in from El Misho is actually off the mark, and now the Stampede is going to bring Latam Defender's heroes directly into the fight. Vitali taken down by the finger. Rades, can he actually TP out in time? Yes, he can. He's going to live. Meanwhile, further to the east, El Misho wasn't able to get himself away. Black Soul is able to track him down with the Remnant Jump. And Latam Defenders, that's exactly what we need to see from them. 2 quick kills, 0 casualties. They get in and out without any major complications.
And it's very, very clean. Again, they're using this Stampede almost like it's an arena where they're running in, they're getting the kill, they're using it pretty much off cooldown, and as long as every Stampede is leading to 1 or 2 kills, they're going to be very, very happy. And of course, you never forget about the TV, right? You're always very aware of when he's going to make his rotations, when the fight is eventually going to come. At the same time, you are going to really be waiting for this Bristleback Ags before you are going to put your pedal to the gas, where you might see them make a play towards this mid-tier 1. Up until this point, Hokori right now, they just need to get these tier 1 towers. This bottom tower is pretty much forfeit. Nobody's really going to seriously defend it, I think, at this point on the Hokori side. And at the same time, Kukahook, he's just farming very peacefully in the other side of the map. Once this troll does have a few more items, maybe after the Sanjin Yasha, that's where if he shows up to the fight where maybe Lumiere doesn't feel comfortable enough to show up to, that's where these team fights could definitely start to result in these earlier and earlier towers. They just need to keep the snowball going. If they can keep these items coming out, even Moonlight is on track for a pretty decent Blink Dagger on the 4 Tiny. They just need to hit those timings hard, and they need to hit them fast. And I definitely think they can keep speed.
And I especially like sort of in keeping in line with that sort of viewpoint, the fact that Kukahook is going for something a little bit more combat oriented. He's not going for that farming build. The sort of Maelstrom into S&Y is really just going to get him into a position where I think he'll be battle ready before the TB does. And as you mentioned, if he can really start getting involved in these team fights, if they can basically fight 5v4 before that TB is really up and running, then they're going to be able to push this momentum even further forward. So Kukahook, obviously for now focusing in the jungle, but he has his eye on that timer, looking to sort of get involved a little bit earlier than his sort of direct counterpart here. But he does need that Sanjin Yasha first. He really can't go into the fight with just the Maelstrom, so they're going to have to buy him a little bit more time, but so far, that really has not been an issue for Latam defenders. They are playing so well right now, and even attempting to put some pressure up in that top lane for really just a moment, as both Kukahook and Moonlight are pushing up here, and tower's already down to about half HP. It is getting healed up by that living armor, but if Latam defenders can keep the pressure on, then your Treant may not always have his eyes in this top lane to defend it.
And that's where I absolutely love what they're doing. Right now, with the way that Hokori have drafted, they have 2 heroes that need to rely on that triangle farm, and they're stepping on each other's toes right now. Right now, you only have one hero holding in the mid wave, being close enough if they do eventually decide to fight you top, while the rest of your team is positioned very aggressively with this high ground ward, so that way there's no real good entry into this top jungle for Hokori, aside from, of course, the smoke, which they are trying to get underway now, because they know that they're really losing the map right now. The Centaur is playing incredibly isolated bottom, and I think they make the smoke play knowing that the Centaur is underneath their vision right now. But Latam, at the same time, are making the perfect read. They're getting pushed out, but everything is sort of under control right now. If Kukahook gets caught top, it is going to be a little bit scary. But again, Hokori, they don't really have the best catch. Everything is really reliant on Vitali with his Blink Dagger, and there is going to be maybe a fight top. But no, this is just a forced move where they have to force everybody out of their jungle, and they're either going to look for a fight here or they're just going to farm the rest of the map.
Searing Chains down onto the Slaughter. Vitali's going to get knocked down, but now here comes the Stampede. They want into the fight, but really, who do they go for? The answer is going to be Analog. They're in onto the Bristleback. They'll hit him up with the Stomp, but good blink in from Vitali. Getting down that Crush onto about 2 or 3. Moonlight already taken down. Radius dropping low as well. That is, well, okay. Maybe could have been a little bit earlier on the Overgrowth, but it's going to get the job done. They take down both the supports. They lock down Valky as well, excuse me.
This is not good.
Now Lumiere's got the double, and now they're into the Roche Pit.
And this feels like Latam, they knew exactly what was going to happen there. They really didn't need to instigate it. I felt like as soon as you saw, or you really should have felt that 5 heroes were moving there, you could have just made the play where you farm the rest of the map. You take over the enemy triangle, and sure, you're swapping positions, but this is all pre-Hokori's timing. There isn't an Aghanim Scepter on the Bristle yet. There isn't that secondary item on Lumiere. But instead, I think you sort of throw away your lead a little bit there. They had the Blink Dagger on the Centaur. I'm assuming they wanted to reveal that, but Vitali really, just with that 3-man crush, threw everything to the side. They got both supports in that crush. They immediately died, and after that Stampede's committed, we've seen teams struggle. If you use that Stampede just a little bit too early, then you are in. There is no way out. Aside from the Ember Spirit, and of course being one of the lone survivors on the Latam defender's side, nobody is able to get out nearly as easily as him, and honestly, they're lucky they didn't lose the troll there. But of course, you lost Aegis, so now Hokori, they're going to feel even more comfortable farming on their side of the map, and you're losing space now, and you're losing time on the Latam defender's side.
Yeah, it just felt like a situation where, I don't know, Latam defenders, they did incredibly well to dodge out that first gank. The smoke really doesn't sort of play out in Hokori's favor, and then after that, it felt like Latam defenders thought to themselves, okay, we've dodged the smoke gank, now we need to try something, and it just felt like they forced it. You mentioned that Stampede in particular. They Stampede forward. The only hero they actually caught up to was Analog on the Bristle, and sure, you catch up to him. You get the toss down into the Stomp, but at that point, Hokori are so close that they were able to immediately respond. So, really, one of the first major mistakes I think we've seen from Latam defenders. Felt like they really did not need to press the issue there, and obviously we see the results. It's just an incredibly sort of unfortunate and costly maneuver for them as they lost the fight, and Roshan Analog still has that Aegis for about 3.5 more minutes, and he's sitting on the Aghanim Scepter now as well.
And something to mention as well is that the Latam defender supports, they are supports that are fantastic if you are doing the jumping. If you are getting the initiation, then you're going to be very happy. If you are able to land your spells first, then something is going to happen. At the same time, Hokori, they don't really care. They're playing much more to survive the jump and then counter-initiate, and that's exactly what happened top. Where if you get initiated on, if you're this tiny, if you're this lion, you are in deep water. You need to be helped by something. And of course, that tool right now is literally just the Stampede. That's where you have to be so careful if you're Latam. And really, I think before, it just came down to that word bottom, scouting out all of the Centaur's rotations. As soon as they saw him disappear from bottom, he's not farming the triangle. He's going to be making a play in your top jungle. Hokori just made that read just a little bit better, and now it does feel like they're just in such a better position. And again, they didn't get that top tower. They weren't able to keep the pressure on long enough. They're maybe 1 or 2 minutes out from that slow push, sort of taking it. And even Kukahook, you saw him cut and run really early on, where he just wasn't feeling comfortable using that battle trance aggressively, because again, he just now got his Sanj. He was not feeling up to that fight at pretty much at all.
Yeah, and we sort of mentioned that earlier on, looking at his itemization. It's something that's going to have him ready for battle a little bit earlier, but he still needs to actually finish the items off. So without that S and Y, doesn't quite have the damage or the durability that he would want. However, over on Black Soul, we do see the Deso being picked up here. So the Ember Spirit's damage does take a rather significant sort of uptick with that item being picked up, and as soon as he finishes it, Yeah, Latam defenders, they want to go forward. 4-man smoke, they've got the Stampede, they've got the blink up on Valky, so they feel incredibly confident right now, and as of right now, they're on a collision course up in that top lane, a trio of Hokori heroes, including Lumiere. If they could knock him down early here, that would be
Ooh,
big,
El
but it looks
Micho.
like, yeah, they're running into El Micho instead. The Hoodwink going to sort of accidentally step in front of that one, but Valky, he's still trying to push forward, but he's by himself at this point. Vitali makes the counter maneuver. They're going to be able to trade out the supports right now, and all of a sudden, your Centaur, he's all by himself. The backup just isn't there. The breakup on that play for Latam defenders cost them so heavily, and it just feels like they were trying to go for maybe 2 or 3 targets at the same time. They probably should have just killed El Micho first and then tried to move on from there. Instead, they split the focus, and Hokori make them pay.
And that is Lumiere. He hit his BKB. I think really the Centaur's heart sank as soon as he saw it. At the same time, you have that Ags finished on the Bristleback, so as soon as he gets involved, the fight really isn't happening. And again, if Vitali's able to find these jumps and wait as long as he can, then this is just going to be the easiest counter initiation of his life. If Lumiere is tanking these spells, oh no,
Oh boy. Is he gonna get himself out of here? Hook is there to try and help out. No. Already's already down. Black Soul, though, did TP in. Moonlight's here as well, so they're gonna try and turn this one around, getting onto Vitali, but really that's not the primary target. They need to try and deal with the Bristle, but Analog just does not care. Walks away from that fight, still had the Aegis even if they did manage to get onto him. So in that regard, if you're locked on defenders, probably better to take the kill onto Vitali, the easier kill to get, the one that they knew that they could secure, but it's still looking a little bit rough there. Hokori were just able to push their way down that top lane. They took a tier 1 tower. They can just apply pressure really whenever they wanted in that situation, and they back away without losing anything major.
And really, I think Vitali wanted to keep the pressure up there. They killed the line as really immediately as he TP'd in. They saw 4 more heroes, and that's where you see Lumiere just take the entire bottom side of the map. And now that Analog has this Aghanim Scepter, it doesn't feel cramped. It doesn't feel like there are heroes being forced to play in the same spot. And that's where a lot of them, they need to get sort of that spark again. Oh, El Micho. Nice toss.
Okay. Quick and easy kill there for Latam defenders. They're going to need a few more of those, though, to really get back into it. Still down by a bit over 2k, but that's a step in the right direction. The problem is, you do have to commit the Stampede, which is not exactly on a short cooldown. So, we talked about this previously in this match, the fact that they were using that Stampede so sort of frequently and so liberally to a certain extent. Now you got to wonder, maybe not if they have the means to initiate without it, but whether they feel comfortable jumping in without that Stampede, both for offensive and potentially sort of bailout purposes.
Yeah, and that's where they need to find these kills onto El Micho. If Black Soul, and he does have a very free game, can play on those supports, then he's going to find a lot of his farm really just killing the Hoodwinks and the Treant Protector. If he can keep those players out of the fight, Treant's a little bit more complicated to kill just because he does have that overgrowth. You always need to be careful of getting bursted out. You don't have any defensive items just yet, and really, I don't think you can afford to get any defensive items. You need to keep this damage. You need to be a reliable source for your team. And we even see Kukahook, he's going for the BKB next. They need to get these items to gear up to fight this Terrorblade. Otherwise, we're going to continue to see them sort of dodge out. And yeah, I think we'll see if they make the call. The TB did break his smoke on the Ember Spirit mid, but... Oh!
Tali gave it a good try there, blinking onto the high ground. Moonlight, though, with his own blink dagger, was able to dodge it, but at this point, Hokori, they're still thinking about it. They see Black Soul in that middle lane, but yeah, smarter move there from the Ember. He's able to back himself away, and Hokori can't find the target, but they do get in onto the tier 1 tower. So the smoke play is not going to lead into kills, but objectives will be secured, and more map control will be going their way, and this is something lots of defenders have to be incredibly sort of careful about. You mentioned just a moment ago the fact that both the TB and the Bristle can now sort of find their farm, and if they're able to take away your side of the map as well, this is going to sort of get out of hand fairly quickly. So if you're lots of defenders, you're going to have to try and do something to retain more control of the map, keep some of these towers up and running.
Yeah, and right now, I think, yeah, they are going to smoke up, but it's these hard decisions where, do you make a break top? Do you try to kill this tier 2 tower? Or do you trade 50-50? Versus TB Bristleback, it feels like you can't trade 50-50. If you continue to fall behind, these heroes just have so much stronger timings than yours right now. Even though you have this Ember Spirit, again, if you're not playing on the right heroes, you're not really going to feel the strength, and that's why I think they're trying to force these clashes where maybe they're able to get something done, but... they are so smart right now. Lumiere's just sitting there. He's 200 from Scotty. Okay.
Moonlight, that's a bold move on his part, and he's going to pay for it. He goes in. Nobody else was along for the ride. Moonlight dead. Already's gone as well. Lumiere picks up the double, and now Black Soul's got to try and get himself away. Jumping to that Remnant. He's got Valky here in support, so should be able to get himself out of that one, but that play breaks apart so quickly. And now Valky, he's still on the run here. Vitaly's going to blink forward, going for the crush, but the Stampede will be there. So Vitaly, can he actually catch up again? He does have the bash. There it is. Bash connecting. Centaur goes for the stomp into the TP, but there's going to be another crush to cancel it. And Hokori just take that one so cleanly, so perfectly. 3 kills their way. Never a moment where any of their heroes were in any danger. And if you're Latam defenders, you cannot afford mistakes like that one.
And it felt like Moonlight, he had to force something there. He was in a position where you see the TB, you know what's kind of going on, but again, Hokori, they put it so smart. Lumiere had his illusion in such a good spot, and they even saw what they were doing on the Latam defender side. They saw them glyphing the wave. Lumiere immediately guns for that mid tower, and Glyph's going to be used, but meta's already committed, so if they really wanted to, they could force the issue. They might just want to reset for next Roche, but this is your Scotty timing. Lumiere, there's nobody else really on the map that can do anything to him. And Kukahuk, he is still one component out from finishing up his BKB.
Ollie blinked in, he managed to get the bash down. Crush will not follow, but Hokori want to push their way forward. Analog's just going to go to town here. They get the crush down onto Black Soul. That is going to force the Ember Spirit away as Moonlight will be taken down. Buying back immediately, looking to rejoin his teammates. Arades, though, was taken down as well, and the Lion, unfortunately, has no buyback. So they're going to be playing up 4v5 here, trying to hold on to their mid lane of Rax, but at this point, the melee is already going to get taken down. Lumiere can just continue to fire away as Moonlight goes in, looking for the toss. They throw back the Bristle. Can they bring him down, though? As of right now, the answer is no. Analog is still lifting his way out of here. The defensive Sunder coming out from Lumiere as well, just to make sure that that Bristle will live. And if you're Latam defenders, I mean, you threw so much into there. You don't get any kills. You lose about half of that middle lane of Rax, and that just felt like really they threw almost everything they had at it, and they come away empty-handed.
And look at this, it's an early Roche as well. They're going to scout it out. And if Latam can't put up a good defense there, that feels like that is going to be the game. But even then, you saw Latam defender supports running past the Bristleback. They had to ignore him. They had to try and get these side kills. Even if you commit the buyback, they had 2 good tossbacks, but it doesn't matter. Again, if you're the Latam defender supports, if you get initiated on, if your spells don't get off, you're really sad. Aretus wasn't able to get a finger off. He wasn't able to find really any kills so far in this game. And Valky, if he has to use Stampede,
he does, but he's still stunned up. Can he get himself away? He is trying to make it out. Blink Dagger is going to create a little bit of separation, so I think he's okay for now, but that's not how you wanted to use your Stampede. And yeah, as you say, Hokori straight into the Roche pit. What are they going to do about it? They don't have the Stampede. You would have to basically blink in with either Valky or Moonlight and basically make a suicidal play, and they're not really willing to do that. And Roche, oh my god, it's going so quickly. The damage and the armor reduction just tearing through it. As Analog will take the Aegis. Lumiere grabs the cheese. Shard is in the hands of the Bristle, but I believe he just passed it off. Yeah, he did. Passes it off to the TB. Maybe not. They're just going to play hot potato with the Shard. Nobody actually wants it right now. There we go. Analog should eventually take it, but down to the south, Moonlight going to get himself jumped in on. Vitaly, he's on the hunt. Mentioned earlier on, he loves to play these sort of more active heroes, and right on cue, he jumps in there. Almisho's going to be the one to get the kill, but that's another pickoff, and Moonlight at this point, he bought back earlier on in that sort of base defense, so he is down for a little bit of extra time, and his net worth is really sort of tanking even further than it already was. So a great situation for the Tiny, not a great situation for Latam defenders, as Hokori now have a chance to really apply pressure anywhere that they want.
Yeah, and it's fortunate just that he's so low level. He really hasn't had the most fantastic game, and they really are running out of targets. If you are Latam defenders, who are you focusing down in your initial burst? Because so far, I feel like every single hero that's been sort of Tiny Tusk comboed, it's just been Almisho. They've just been preying on the Hoodwinked, but as soon as this 5-man came out, it felt like they did really miss their opportunity, and now you're in a really rough situation. The Shard did eventually get passed over to Vitaly, and it's a terrifying shard. As soon as that Slithering Crush applies the Corrosive Haze to targets in that AoE, Vitaly has consistently been finding 2 or more targets in those crushes. And really, it's just the Fortress. Now you have to beat into this almost level 20 TB. They toss him, but...
Okay. Lumiere, though, pops the meta and the BKB. He's going to go to work here. Stampede used defensively. Moonlight, though, still not getting himself out. Moonlight dead for about 40 seconds on the sidelines here with no buyback available. So Hokori just going to charge forward. Tier 3 tower dropping low. Lots of defenders at this point feel like they have to do something. I don't really think they can afford to go down 2 lanes of Rax at this stage of the game, but who is going to make that move? Valky's looking for it. He's got the Blink Dagger, but he needs the perfect initiation here. And right now, Hokori, they're spread out far enough where he's never going to be able to hit everyone that he needs to, as both mid and top will be taken in their entirety. And at this point, Hokori, well, I don't know. They could continue pushing forward. They've got the Aegis up on the Bristleback, so they could just look for an opportunity here as Lumiere force staffing himself forward, looking for the initiation, but now Valky tries to push in. Hook Stomp connecting onto two. Hook fighting his way through here as well. Very low on HP, though, and he is going to be forced into using that ult, but now Gardet comes in, dropping the Overgrowth. They'll sunder things up there, so Lumiere back up to full HP, and this is just not looking good. Hook still surviving, but his teammates are going down. Valky will fall, buying back immediately, but they need to be able to keep that troll alive, and they can't do so. Hook taken down, buying back immediately, getting himself out of the fountain here as Arades does come in with the Finger of Death. That's going to be enough to take down the Bristleback once, but the Aegis gets it right back into the fight. Moonlight, though, blinking in, going for the toss, throwing him back into the fountain. And I mean, he dies eventually, but with that many quill sprays coming out, both the Arades and Moonlight are actually taken down in the process, but worth it? I mean, you do get the kill there onto the Bristle. You burn through that Aegis, and now you are going to be able to get in onto El Misho as well, although they don't realize that they have. They need detection here.
There we go.
Dust will be popped. El Misho on the run, but Black Soul should have him locked down here. Never mind. Valky's going to take it for himself. He's not willing to wait. So, Double Edge comes through. Latam defenders are able to pick up those kills, but I don't know. 2 lanes of racks down, multiple buybacks having to be expended. It still felt so rough for Latam defenders there, despite the fact that they get a little bit of gold back on the sort of back end of that fight.
Yeah, and if the hairball was online, I honestly think he kills every single hero there. But that shard on the Slaughter is 100% better. But yeah, even popping the BKB so early on Lumiere, he didn't want to play into that toss play at all. Didn't want to get immediately hexed up. And then very simply, he sits behind his Aegis Bristleback and sieges up the tower. It was at minimum going to be 1 Rax, but you're going to take 2 buybacks and everything. Oh, Black Soul.
This is ambitious. I don't think he realized there were multiple heroes there. Now that he knows, though, he's got to try and get himself away. He is going to drop the Remnant. Should be enough to get him out, but I don't know. His teammates were kind of angling like they wanted that fight, but as you mentioned, the Remnant count is, at this point, basically non-existent, so they really can't afford to take this. But Vitaly doesn't want to give him a choice. Pushing in, that's going to force out the Stampede. Good defensive move from Valky, but El Misho comes in with that Atos. They're not actually going to be able to lock him down, though. The Blink does get Moonlight out of there just in time, so everyone will sort of go their separate ways, but that... I'm not really sure what the plan was there. Latam defenders are just kind of lucky they got everyone away in that scenario.
Yeah, and no time wasted. Lumiere claims her bottom tower, farms up the rest of the T3 items, and now what do you do if you're Latam? Your targets, they're really diminished down. The best case scenario, I think, is you kill Vitaly before he gets his BKB off, but you're so low level on both of your supports at this point, and while the Centaur, they were playing so well around it early on, now you're running out of damage. You don't have those Ultra Cores. If there was a TB on the Latam defender side, I'd feel so much better, but you don't have that. You have Kukahuk. He's going for an Aghanim Scepter now, which, it's interesting. It's something that's going to allow him to not be corrosive hazed or overgrowth or any of that nonsense, but again, you are running out of damage right now. That is Latam defender's biggest issue, and Hokori, they can play this as fast or as slow as they want to. They could wait for a few more supplemental items. I mean, he's getting a AC up on that Bristleback. Maybe you're going to finish an item up on your supports. But I honestly feel like they could just go, and they're going to go with Lumiere Satanic nonetheless. And I don't know how you get through Cheese, BKB Sunder, and a Satanic. This is going to be rough.
It will take perfect execution here, but... oh, this is not perfect so far, at least not on the Latam defender side, although, okay, Moonlight able to blink himself out, but now Black Soul, oh my god, he lost about 2/3 of his HP there in about a second and a half, but he is able to jump back eventually. The problem is, who's here to defend the racks? That final lane is being taken down. Lumiere just does not care about anything that Latam defenders will throw at him. He's just going to take that objective. The Mega Creeps will be acquired. Now they're looking to end the game. Lumiere pushing forward. BKB active. They're looking for that damage, but Valky's able to get everyone away with the Stampede, at least for now, but Bushwhack comes in onto 2, locking down both of the supports. Moonlight dead already. Arades will be going down as well. Valky now trapped outside of his own fountain. He's going to be falling as well, and at this point, the buybacks just aren't there. The GG will be called, and it's going to be Hokori taking game 1 of this best of 3.
Yeah, and I really feel like, and now you're going to see some, a little bit of fountain camp in there. You always do it when you have Bristleback, but it was just that top smoke where they smoked into the enemy team's smoke. Hokori, they had the vision, they had the good read, they knew exactly what was coming, and Do you want to say Vitaly won the game off of one crush? No, you can't say that. He played fantastically pretty much all the way through, but it really was that one team fight into the Roche that sort of spilled everything out for Latam defenders. There wasn't too much coming in from them at that point, and they tried to make those smoke plays. They tried to force those rotations, and I think the big sort of turning points in this game was top whenever they got immediately countered into the Roche, and then bottom lane, where they tried to get into the triangle, they felt like they needed to make a play, but it wasn't around a specific item timing. It was just because they felt behind. They felt like they needed to do something. And Hokori, they just had a little bit more net worth, a little bit of a better read, and that's all it took with the draft they had. And they just snowballed in the other direction pretty much every single time.
Yeah, it just felt like at a certain point, Latam defenders drafts, it wasn't that bad. The idea was there. We mentioned Valky was playing so well on that Centaur. They were really sort of working around that cooldown with the Stampede, but you mentioned it yourself, ET. They could not afford to back down. They had to keep that pressure going over and over again, and at a certain point, that pressure just stops being applied. Lumiere never taken down there, 12 and 8 on his TB. Your Bristleback, really from the time he picks up the Aghanim Scepter through the end of the game, doesn't really suffer under a lot of pressure either. So I feel like they had the right idea initially, but things just sort of slowed down a little bit too much for them. And if you do that against Hokori, with this lineup in particular, they're just going to build up and basically run you down.
And you can't call it a throw, right? They didn't throw on defender's side. It never felt like Hikori were ever out of it. And again, with the lineup they had, they weren't going to be out of it. They were going to look for that later timing. But at the same time, it does kind of suck because they could have made the decision where, okay, we see what's going on here. We're going to move out on the lanes. We're not going to stake everything on this one initiation top. But instead, you just die a little bit too close to the pit, and then everything gets kind of thrown to the wind at that point.
Yeah, that fight, the sort of busted smoke play into the teamfight loss in the Roche pit was really where we saw things turn. That was Latam defender's sort of key moment, and unfortunately for them, doesn't quite go there. But I don't know. In terms of looking ahead towards game two, ET, really, what do you think that they're going to try and do here? Because it seemed like the game plan was okay for them initially. They just sort of lose sight of things, maybe around that sort of mid-game transition. Do they just go for a similar strategy and try to plug the holes in that draft, or do we see them try something maybe more out there, a bit more different from what we saw in game one?
Well, I really liked what they had. I really liked their draft. On paper, everything makes sense, right? You last picked the Troll Warrior to try and secure him a lane. Really, I think Vitaly had a really fantastic time for what he sort of ended up with. It's just the power of the Hoodwink, I think, there, where Hoodwink just wins lanes for no reason. The Bushwhack is just a little bit too strong of a spell. I think now you maybe look to take some of Hokori's heroes. You maybe play a little bit more towards the new meta. Not saying that Centaur Tiny are out, that they're not as powerful as they used to be, but we really have seen this heavy shift towards the Hoodwink, towards the AA, towards the Wyvern, that I think if you're on them, you need to make a pretty big shift. Because again, Hikori, they're coming into this, I think, as the better team. They were in the upper bracket starting off this tournament, and you need to take some aspects out of their team fight. Because right now, they just have everything. They've got the best carry, they've got the best four, and they've got a mid that's not going to, you can't lose the matchup. You just simply can't. And I think that was just too much pressure for the heroes that they had on the Autumn Defenders side. They need to get something a little bit more well-rounded and just a little bit more up to speed. I think this is kind of an old lineup for them, and it just wasn't up to snuff in the meta.
Yeah, not a bad strategy, as we've repeatedly mentioned, just one that wasn't quite able to hold its own against what we saw Hokori putting together. So, well, if you're locked on defenders, you know what you need to address here. Only, I would say, really some minor concerns here and there. No need to maybe over-adjust, but we'll have to wait and see exactly what it is they put together. Game 2 should be coming up in just a little bit here, so we will be bowing out for just a few minutes, but when we return, it'll be Game 2 between Hokori and Latam Defenders. We'll see if Hokori can get the clean 2-0 sweep to advance to the next round, or if Latam Defenders can push this to a full 3 games. So we will be right back with that Game 2 draft in just a little bit.